it wasn't natural in the beginning to be like, okay, let's stop and pray together. Like that feels weird when you're in the heat of conflict of, I don't feel good about stopping and praying. I want to like continue duking it out, even if you know that's not right. That's where your emotions are. At least that's where our emotions were. But like the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Hey, 1 Degree fam. I'm Nathaniel.
And I'm Zan. And this is the 1 Degree podcast, where we talk about what it looks like to be married as followers of Jesus.
Look, we know that life gets full. Marriage, kids, work, church, sports, the list goes on and on. But we believe that a thriving marriage does not happen by accident.
Each episode will give you real conversations, practical tools, and biblical encouragement to help you connect deeply with your spouse and live on mission together.
So, whether you're folding laundry, driving to work, or maybe even working out, we're glad you're here with us.
Let's dive in. What is up, 1 Degree fam?
What is up, fam? Welcome back to the comfy, cozy, virtual leather couch. We are so glad to have you with us today. And right off the bat, we're going to go a little off script.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know where you're going.
We're taking, and Zan doesn't know where I'm going with this. And today, if you clicked on this episode, you know that we're going to be talking about conflict. How do you resolve conflict in a healthy, Christ-like manner as a married couple? And so where I'm going with this is it's kind of ironic because last week, Thursday, I got lunch with one of my pastors, and I was telling him that like the season of life is really good. It's really rich. It's really full, but it's been genuinely really good. And I was explaining that Zan and I can't even remember the last time we got into like a conflict that we handled poorly. And then on Saturday, we handled conflict poorly.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, I guess it was kind of conflict.
Break it down for us, Zan. What happened? Give us the play-by-play.
Do you want my side of the story?
Yeah, you can give your side of the story.
I'm trying to even remember. It's all a blur. It was not even a huge deal, to be honest. But Saturday is our Sabbath, and we're pretty good about protecting that. And we don't work, and no social media, like those kind of. It's just a time that we usually focus on doing fun things as a family that are somewhat restful. It's not like we're just napping. We have 3 small children. Like it looks different, but that's our goal.
And like turning our affections to the Lord, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think I was trying to lay out like why this didn't go as well. But so we go. Like,
I was going to say, and if they listen to our last episode, they know something that else that happens on Saturday.
So sometimes I don't even know how I did Saturday.
No, it did not.
Like, so not because of this. It was just like whatever. But where am I going with this? Okay, so then you went and you were like helping your dad split wood, which is fine. I don't think that is like outside of this. Like you in general feel like that's kind of restful.
I work with my mind. I had a seminary professor that talks about if you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. If you work with your hands, Sabbath with your mind.
I feel like your job is a little bit more not physical now, but like you're on your feet a lot.
I'm on my feet more, but it's still not super physical, and it's more mental than physical.
I was gonna say that's kind of like mine now because I work with my mind, but I'm always on the walking pad because I set my step goal higher now. Anyway, but I don't think I qualify as a manual labor job because I'm on my walking pad. Anyway, so we did that, but then like you had to go back later in the day. So basically it got to be like 3:00 and we hadn't actually had time as a family. It was like, which is not that's not the issue. The issue was then like, I really wanted to the playroom had gotten to the point where I was just always overstimulated when I was in there, and I really wanted to take care of that. And I think you were kind of on board. It started with let's move the craft table down to the girls' room.
Yeah, but I was on board, but also too, like at this point I hadn't felt like we had really rested and done anything. But
so we start with moving the table, but then that turns into like, okay, well now we got to move all the chapter books. And then that turns into like, well now we're moving bookcase. And suddenly we're like doing furniture reorganization. And it was just like, Nathaniel was very unhappy about heated. Not resting.
Well, what ended up happening is I took all the books off and put them on the floor.
No.
What?
You did not take all the books off and put them on the floor.
I put them in a pile on the floor.
Aggressively, I can't. You can't see me if you're not listening. Sorry, I need to turn my computer on Do Not Disturb, and I forgot to do that. Usually I can do it silently and you don't have to hear about it, but my brain's not working that way right now. So anyway, you like not shoved. What's the word? Like slid them all off the thing.
Off the thing.
There is a mound. It is a small playroom with a rug that takes up the majority of the room, and that rug was entirely piled high with all the books because you were annoyed. And you took it out on the books. And
well, no, in my mind.
You're still going down saying that it wasn't because you were annoyed.
In my mind, there was a little level of annoyance, but the books already weren't organized on the bookshelves, and I knew we were going to have to reorganize anyway.
They were organized.
They weren't.
You go back to like, oh, you always tell the kids they're disorganized. And it's like, okay, yeah, 1 or 2 books will be out of place. And I'm like,
anyway. You weren't going to let me tell my side.
Okay, Nathan,
I slid them off, I put them on the rug. Yeah, and then I was giving my side.
Yeah, but you hadn't listened to my side yet.
Okay, what's the rest of your side?
But I was like, wow, this guy's unhinged, but I'm going to try not to escalate things. And so I tried not to. And then I said, all right, we're stopping. We're praying. We're reminding each other we're on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
And then we redeemed the night, and Alabama had a dub.
Yeah, for Alabama football. That's right. They did have a dub in an ugly game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, from my perspective, just to go back to the books, I had slid them off into a pile, and maybe there was a level of frustration there. And then because Zan had told me, I was like, oh, I can organize the books. And she was like, oh, you don't know.
No, not organized. You said, I can decide which ones we're going to put away.
To put away, like get packed up and put up in the attic, and then which ones to keep in the playroom. And then you said.
I said, you're not involved in homeschool, so you don't know which ones I need to keep around.
But I did, and I do. I'm a smart guy. I can discern.
I know, but in my mind, I was like, wait, he's not going to know that I need me on the map for our social studies unit study.
I would never pack that one up. It was just all like the fringe books. But anyway, so then that was frustrating.
Like, no, I need to have inventory of the books.
So what ended up happening, and I can admit my weakness, right? The purpose of me bringing this up
I'm so glad we're going over this again.
No, honesty and vulnerability, because I think it's helpful to like, oh man, admit that you're not perfect and you have room for growth.
Oh, everyone thought we were.
I know, but I piled up all the books, and then Zan came in there and she thought Emery and Verity had done it. And she was like, Emery, Verity, why would you pile them all up? And they were like, Dad did it. And I was like, I did do it. And then she was like, Zan was very stern. She's like, you're going to go clean it up. And I was like, no, I'm not. You said I didn't know which book, so you're going to go clean it up. And that's where I think the real frustration, and if I'm going to be honest, like real frustration and pride kicked in, because at that point I was like, oh no, like she had said that about the books. I'm not budging here.
But yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so I was very frustrated in that moment. And so props to Zan, because she did then, I think it wasn't anything crazy, but it was just like you could tell it was very tense. And it was me being like, no, I am not cleaning those up. You can go clean them up if you want them cleaned up, is basically what I said. And
one of your least attractive moments.
And so then Zan stopped us. She was like, hey, look, we're going to do it together. We're on the same team. Let's stop. Let's pray. All that kind of stuff.
And you know what? The playroom is amazing and so
we should
easily
go show them.
cleaned
Let's bring the computer
up,
over there.
And it doesn't send my nervous system into overdrive.
Yeah, we're like 3 days in.
So peaceful, huh?
I said we're like 3 days in, so we'll see.
No, because you know what? There's not enough stuff in there to go crazy. Like
we simplified.
It's amazing. And I just wish every area of my whole entire house could be like that. Well, it could, but then we'd have to go through this every single weekend. Just kidding. Okay. So let's talk about conflict resolution. Now that we've painted a little picture here, you've gotten some spoiler or some like foreshadowing of what we're going to talk
what's
about.
coming. Yeah. And what were we going to say?
Nothing.
I thought you were going to go into it.
Nah, I think I was just going to see where my sentences went.
Just Michael Scott.
Yeah.
I'd just like to start my sentence and see if I find it along the way.
I do that more often than I'd like to admit.
But here's what I would say. Conflict oftentimes, I think, in society at large is viewed as something to just avoid at all costs, of like, oh, conflict equals bad. And so I don't want to have conflict, so I'm going to avoid it. Maybe that means I'm going to try to either not ruffle feathers. I'm going to not bring up my concerns. I'm just going to talk about these issues to my like girlfriends or my guy friends, I'm going to complain about Zan to my group of guys that I hang out with. Like, oh, can you believe this, and this?
I feel like that's why gossip, there's a lot of reasons, but I think that's why gossip for one, is so prevalent, especially maybe even in the church, is because we
don't handle conflict well.
avoidant. We're confrontation avoidant. And so that's a way to kind of like air our frustrations without confrontation or conflict.
And so like a lot of people just try to avoid it, you know, and that's kind of their conflict resolution strategy is, oh, nope, we don't have conflict. We just try to avoid it at all costs. Other people, they're just like it reaches a boiling point and then it turns into just passive aggressiveness. Like, oh, you're super angrily, you storm over to the sink full of dishes and you're like, well, I guess these dishes aren't going to wash themselves. And you start like angrily cleaning the dishes. Or, you know, it's just like leaving the trash at the door and being like, oh, you never take out the trash. Why don't you finally do something, you know, or whatever. And it turns into like passive aggressiveness or bitterness. Like you try to not bring it up, and then all of a sudden it becomes too much, and then it overflows with all of that passive aggressiveness and bitterness. You know, and then there's other ways too of like, okay, conflict comes up and then it turns into denial. Like, oh, I don't watch that much TV. Like, what about you? You're just sitting there scrolling on your phone, you know, denial or blame shifting of, you know, hey, would you mind turning off the TV? I don't even get to watch TV that much. Like you're just sitting there scrolling on your phone. What does that mean to you? Like, what's it to you? All that kind of stuff. And I think ultimately as married couples, and I'm speaking for us, but I think a lot of married couples can understand and empathize with this point of view is like we handle conflict eventually bubbles up, boils over. We handle it poorly, whether it's, you know, passive aggressive, denial, yelling, whatever it may entail. And then we're just like, oh man, we finally come down from it, whether it be later that day or the next day and be like, oh, that was terrible. Let's never do that again. But you never come up with like a plan or a point of action to be, hey, how do we make sure that this never happens again? How can we actually handle conflict well? Because I think that in reality, conflict is neutral. Like conflict is not good or bad. How you handle it is going to determine the outcome of whether it's good or bad. Like conflict naturally is going to come up between two like spouses that are sinful, that are fallen, that are living in close proximity to one another. Like there are going to be differences of opinions. There's going to be differences of thoughts. Like conflict is inevitable. How you handle that determines whether it's healthy and good and productive for your marriage or whether it's detrimental and poor for your marriage.
Yeah, what I was going to say is by definition, conflict is, like you said, neutral in the sense of it's two different things. It's conflicting things. That doesn't mean, so like, yes, there is that element of we're both sinful people, but even if neither person is in sin, neither person is wrong, like there will likely be conflict if there is a voicing of opinion. If there's a healthy dynamic of having respect for each other's opinions, then those will likely conflict at some point. And so, yeah, the goal is not to avoid that. That would actually be a very big red flag if you never see conflicting opinions in your marriage or conflicting ideas because somebody's is not getting voiced, you know, that's likely, or neither is getting voiced. So
that's a good point because I remember we actually had a pastor, the pastor of our church when we were in college. I still remember this from one of his sermons. He talked about how he had been married for a year and he went to a mentor and he said something along the lines of like, oh, our marriage is perfect. We've never had a fight. And his mentor was like, you need to go home and you need to have a disagreement because if you don't have any disagreement, if you don't have any conflict, most likely what's happening is like someone doesn't feel comfortable enough voicing their opinions.
Yeah.
And so if not, two people do not think the same things about every single decision, every single circumstance. And so conflict is inevitable. People need to feel comfortable bringing it up and handling it in a productive manner.
Yeah. So let's get into, we're going to kind of walk through components of healthy, productive. It would be what I would say. Conflict can be productive and growth providing and Christ-centered ultimately.
Yeah.
And so let's go through that.
So we got 5, you know, we like a good list over here. So 5 components to a healthy, productive conflict. Point number 1.
Soft startup. If you have been around here, you've heard us reference John Gottman, We don't need to go into him, but he's a very big name in relationship science, in the counseling world, the Gottman Institute. But
Institute?
Institute?
Institute. Just sounded like you said institute.
I did, because I think that's how I pronounce that word, institute.
Oh, interesting.
Institute. I know how it's spelled, but interesting. But he has said that how a discussion begins determines how a discussion or a conversation will go in 90% of circumstances. So if it starts with accusations and yelling, there's a 90% chance that it's going to just devolve into that, or just not be a productive, fruitful conversation, because it's very indicative. The startup is very indicative of the rest of the conversation. So what is soft startup? How do we do it? Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, so I would say a soft startup. Hold on, I'm about to sneeze here, and that's really annoying.
You've been on the brink.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
Maybe we'll end it.
Yeah, maybe. Or we'll just leave it in, because, we're authentic and real here.
I feel like it's the season. It is the sneezing.
Yeah. So what I would say is I just processed what you said.
I know.
I would say that a soft startup is when you have a legitimate concern or a critique, and you want to bring it up in a loving, non-accusational way, where it's like, you don't want to be accusatory. You want to bring up your critique, you want to bring up your concern, but you want to do it in a way that is non-accusational, that is not harsh, that's kind, that's loving, all of that kind of stuff. And so you can actually hear the difference in these examples. So here are two brief examples revolving around the dishes, right? So here's example number 1.
Freaking dishes.
Hey, I would really love some help with the dishes, and I know that we agreed that we would both pitch in this week. Could we tackle this together right now? That's example number 1. Versus example number 2 is, hey, could you get off your lazy butt and actually do something around the house and help me with the dishes for once? That's example number 2.
I feel like that's a little drastic.
I don't think so. I know,
get off your lazy butt and help me with something for once.
Oh, for sure. I know people in my life, that's how they would communicate with their spouse.
Oof.
For sure. And so you can hear the difference in the request. And here's a couple of okay, these are the tangible ways that you can practice it. You might be saying okay, I can hear the difference, but how do I actually implement this? How do I actually do this in my life? And so first of all, I would say is focus on I statements instead of you statements. And I shouldn't say first of what I would say. This is from Gottman himself. But focusing on I statements instead of you statements of, hey, you never help. Hey, get off your butt. All of those kind of things versus, hey, I would really love some help with the dishes right now. Could we make it an inclusive environment instead of the accusational you never do this, or you need to do something, all of those kind of stuff. So focus on I statements, and with that, really incorporate how you feel. Make it express, instead of expressing accusation, express how you feel of, hey, I would really love help with the dishes. Or, hey, when I'm doing dishes by myself, I feel like I'm merely a maid at the house, or, I'm merely a servant, whatever it may be. This is how it makes me feel. No, but I'm saying of I would really love some help, and I really feel isolated.
Yeah, isolated feels more than I feel like I'm the maid.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
That feels kind of accusational.
Okay, but that's fair. So I feel isolated, or I feel alone, whatever it may be, and those kind of things. And so focus on I statements instead of you statements. The next thing, how you can practice off startup, would be focus on the specific situation at hand. And so don't generalize and don't judge. And so in that example of the dishes, it's focusing on these specific dishes, focusing on, hey, could you help me with this? Instead of, hey, you never help out at all, just this general statement, or I'm always the one doing the dishes. It's just those generalizations. And one key way to do this, and we're going to touch on this is actually our point number 2, is to remove the always and never language, because very, very, very rarely are always and never applicable. I'm sure there are times when your spouse has helped to do something, and so just getting away from that language is really important.
Going back to the soft startup, a reason this is important is when we, on the contrary, when we don't soft startup and we come out guns a-blazing, or we come out with accusations or contempt, that just physically in your body, neurologically, triggers a flooding of your nervous system.
Doesn't trigger like a fight or flight response, essentially?
Yeah, the flooding with the fight or flight hormones, like adrenaline. You're going to get that cortisol spike. You're going to get, like, your body goes into defense mode, where if you're being attacked verbally, even, I mean, maybe that's a drastic word, but it feels like an accusation. It feels like an attack to some degree. You get that, like, your heart rate starts increasing. You feel all those things. And so obviously you have the power to not match that. But biologically, you are going to want to. Like, you're going to want to rise to that level of accusation. And so that makes sense. That whole 90% of the time, it's going to be indicative of the rest of the conversation. So by starting it gently, like, you're keeping that each other's nervous systems safe and secure, and it doesn't feel like an attack, and your body isn't going into fight or flight. There's so much. This is like so many parallels to parenting too, with keeping that emotionally informed parenting of, you know, how you handle things is keeping your kid from being in the same. So anyway, there's just a lot of parallel there, but I think that's always an interesting thing. It's not just this like nebulous abstract concept. There is science to it too.
Yeah. So interesting that you say that. I never actually put this together, but Gottman also has what he calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, where like these 4 indicators of, hey, your marriage, not that it's like in trouble and on the brink of divorce, but like you need to work on these things because this could be have long-term negative effects on your marriage if you don't work on these things. And he talks about 2 of them, like in response to critiques or something like that. One of them is denial, where it's like, we talked about that of, oh, I don't do that, you know, or, oh, I don't do that much, all that kind of stuff. What about this instead? And then the other one is stonewalling, where you like completely shut down. Yeah, there is. There is contempt. But I'm talking about the 2 in general that I'm thinking of right now. One of them is denial and one of them is stonewalling. Stonewalling is where you shut down, you're just super avoidant, you completely avoid the conflict, you don't address it, you leave. But that's what I'm saying of, it makes sense. If you start a conversation harshly, like 2 of the responses, fight or flight. Either like denial, you're rising to the occasion, you're fighting, or stonewalling, you're just shutting down, you're leaving, you know? And I just kind of put that together, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So transitioning, Nathaniel already alluded to this, brought it up, but removing always and never language, because it is very unlikely that it is true. And
you should never use always and never language. Yeah. But truly.
I mean, you should steer away from it unless it's completely accurate. But
yes.
Because 1, it's not soft startup, it's very accusational. And it's creating a hostile environment anyway, right away. And it is shifting. Likely the response is going to be the person going into defense on why that's not true. Well, I just did the dishes Tuesday night, or I just helped clean earlier today, versus keeping the issue at hand. And so suddenly you're creating an argument around your argument, versus
the
an argument around
the hand.
Exact. Yeah.
Huh.
So I think that is.
Bring it, Zan.
Yeah. Well, there's point number 2. I don't know that there's a whole lot more.
I was going to say, like, I would also say, even if it's true, right? Like, I'm trying to think of something in our relationship. What would be true about always and never language? Like, if my thing for you, what?
You have to say, like, I've never been a man, but it's good to say it like differently anyway.
No, but I was going to think for me, like the most tempting thing for me to say would be like, oh, like you never drive, because like I do 99% of the driving.
I drove this morning.
No, but you never drive when we're together, like with the family. Like I always do the driving, pretty much, in very rare circumstances. But that's what I'm saying. So, but let's just pretend for a second.
I'm not defensive because I don't care. Like you want to have that role.
Yeah, but it's actually kind of funny because I wouldn't bring it up like that. But even like your instinct was kind of to get a little defensive there. Was it not?
I mean, yeah, obviously, because I'm like, I literally just drove this morning.
No, I know, but I wasn't there.
Huh?
Like, I wasn't.
Yes,
that's
I know.
what I'm saying.
But that is the whole point, is that our mind, as the person receiving that statement, immediately goes to, how can I contradict? Like, you go to lawyer mode of like, well, here's an exact contrary example.
So that was not planned. Also, by the way, that was entirely like spur of the moment, which is actually just really funny. We just like hashed that out live.
It's not like a sinful thing. I think it's a human thing.
Yeah.
If you're told this or this, like your mind automatically is trying to disprove that.
Yeah. But with that being said, what I was trying to convey is that even if it is true, like even if there is something your spouse has never done or your spouse quote unquote always does, like it's not productive to bring it up that way. Yeah. Like going back to soft startup and bringing things up in a kind, gentle way, focusing on yourself, focusing on kind of your emotions surrounding it and gently asking them to help. Like that's going to be one of the most productive ways to bring up a conversation. Using always or never and never language is most often going to lead to that fight or flight response, is most likely going to lead to kind of just a poor conflict. Yeah. What would it be for you? What would you say of like something I always or never do?
Oh,
I'm just curious.
Like
Putting you on the spot. Yeah, like driving was the first thing that came to my mind because I almost.
I always am the one that ensures that the house is clean before we go to bed. If you might do something if I ask, but you are going to bed regardless of whether the house is clean or
like
not.
it's not a must get done for me.
It is like I physically cannot bring myself downstairs to go to bed if the house is not.
I mean, you physically could.
I physically can, but I know that I will very strongly regret it in the morning.
Yeah. And also, too, I think for us, one of the biggest things we've had to work through is our standard of cleanliness is very different.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm not budging.
No, I'm saying like our standard of cleanliness. So like, even though I know that about Zan, and even though like,
and by that we mean it doesn't have to be clean for him.
No, but even though like we clean together pretty much every night after the girls go to bed or after the kids go to bed, and yet still like I'll clean for 10 minutes and be like, oh, this is clean enough. This is good. We can go to bed. And Zan be like, well, what about this singular crumb on the floor?
I'll be like, do you have eyeballs? Have you looked at the sink or anything?
Yeah. And so it's just like that's been a big thing for us to have to work through and to pursue growth and have. I think we've grown a lot in it though.
Yeah.
Versus where we used to. Okay, we're still working on you, okay?
I'm not lowering standards.
You don't need to be like what's the proper word? Like so
Martha
uptight about like having everything completely 100% clean before bed.
My home well and faithfully.
Martha. Okay.
All right.
Number three,
develop a conflict resolution plan. So we talked about this. This was our foreshadowing.
Yes.
We have a episode specifically about that. I think it's our favorite way to fight.
Yes.
It's like, I don't know, 10 down maybe.
And it's specifically about developing a conflict resolution
plan. We're not
going
to go too into this because you've gotten the gist here. Yeah. And but for us, ours is we stop and we pray.
Mm-hmm.
It's very disarming. It's really hard to be grouchy in your prayers to God. You know, like sometimes that's the real state that you come to him in, but like hopefully he's working in your heart throughout the prayer.
Yeah.
And
I will say it's very hard to be like, okay, done prayer. Why would you do like it's naturally disarming.
You're likely not going to be like, amen, and then start name calling.
Yeah.
Number 2, we remind each other explicitly out loud we are on the same team. So we'll look each other in the eyes and be like, we are on the same team. Because again, disarming, it is for us just a tangible reminder that we are it's not you versus me, it's us versus this issue at hand.
Yes. And I think that that's very important because oftentimes, even though you cognitively know that, hey, we're trying to resolve this issue, so often when conflict comes up in marriage, subconsciously it becomes this like you versus me mentality of like, I'm trying to win this fight instead of I'm trying to reach resolution. We're trying to reach resolution together on this issue. And so when you look each other in the eyes and you say, hey, we are on the same team, we're trying to solve this issue together. Again, it just resets your focus. It resets your intentionality. Instead of trying to win a fight, win an argument, you're trying to together solve an issue.
Yep. And then we each state what our main issue is because a lot of times it can devolve into every grievance you have just being aired. So we say, okay, what is the core issue
like
for you at
thing,
hand? Like if you can pinpoint this to one thing, what is it? And we state that. And then this is key. we practice active listening, another Gottman principle. This idea of you're listening to understand. You're not listening with forming your bullet points of your retorts. You're not going into lawyer mode of how you can pick apart this argument or pick apart his reasoning. Yeah. You are listening to understand. You may even say, hey, okay, I'm hearing you say this. Like, am I properly understanding this? So that you can open up that space to clarify if needed. And then, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, we discuss it and then we come to a...
Yeah, we provide potential solutions and like plans of action. If it's if it's a thing about, if it's a big decision, do we move or not move? We come up with potential solutions.
We've talked about that before, but this is more talking about like a day-to-day.
Do we do the dishes or not do the dishes? Let's go to bed.
Okay, Okay, so how would you respond to somebody who's like, okay, my spouse, I know better. They're going to say this is fuddy-duddy, this is formal. They're not going to do this.
What I would say is that I think that it works. And like maybe, no, I mean, that's like very simple. But I go back to Saturday for us, and this is a very tangible example. But Saturday could have been a lot worse if you had not just been like, hey, let's stop and pray. Let's remind each other we're on the same team. Let's state the issue at hand. Like for me, what was most frustrating was the fact of like, it just felt very hurtful for you to say that, oh, I couldn't organize the books. And like for you, that's not how it meant to come off. But like that was almost like the root of the issue. That's what led me down to frustration. And then like you were like, why is he acting like this? Like you didn't understand how hurtful that was. Like because it wasn't intentional.
It was just like, how is he going to know what books I need for my curriculum list?
Yeah. And for me, it was like, those weren't the types of books. Like I'm not stupid, like I can figure out which books we might need. And if I have a question. No, but I'm saying like, that was the main issue. But if the conflict by that point had just devolved and then like there's a pile of books and you're focusing on the pile of books on the floor, and then before you know it, anyone who's been in an argument with their spouse, they know that all of a sudden you're down to like the fourth thing on the list, and you think the issue is the fact that they left a milk carton out a week ago, and it's like whoa, let's start over.
That's
like what's
too close
the one
to home.
Main issue?
I always leave the milk carton out.
But I'm saying it's like by the time you're done with the argument, you forget what even started the argument. And like for us, it's a helpful reminder of like, oh wait, this was the one biggest thing. We're able to discuss that. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was so hurtful. And I was like, I'm sorry, like I should not have reacted in the way that I did. If you had not done that, like that would not have been how the discussion went, And so I think that it might seem cheesy, it might seem formal, but it's like, what is wrong with having a plan of action? Like the best outcomes in life comes when you have a specific plan, whether it be a workout plan, whether it be a work plan, whether it be a plan for homeschooling, whatever it is. It's like, there's nothing else in life that is like, oh, I hope I become a better runner. Like, are you going to make a plan to become a better runner? No, I'm just going to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's a general theme that we have around here. That's the whole idea behind 1 Degree in general, is that when you make these intentional decisions and you set up these structures, that creates space for your marriage to thrive. And so that's where it's kind of transitioning now. We would say okay.
I was just going to add one more thing there too, of like that argument of like, this feels cheesy or this feels formal. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's so much more natural for us now to be just like, it wasn't natural in the beginning to be like, okay, let's stop and pray together. Like that feels weird when you're in the heat of conflict of, I don't feel good about stopping and praying. I want to like continue duking it out, even if that's not right. That's where your emotions are. At least that's where our emotions were. But like the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Is the other thing I would add.
Yeah. So transitioning to, like I said, the structure, regularly discuss and reflect on how conflict is going. So this is something that we do in our weekly marriage meeting. There is a question that we ask that is, how has conflict not gone well at any point? Is there any unresolved conflict? And that gives us a chance to, like Nathaniel said before, it was like months of us being like, no, kind of just like skipped it because we were like, okay, well, everything's going well.
Let me tell you, this past Sunday, we had something to talk about.
I mean, we had kind of already talked about it, but it was like, okay, so next time, let's make sure that we go through that conflict resolution plan. Let's make sure that we don't, like, that we voice things proactively of like, hey, I feel like we're not getting enough restful family time today, like, let's be proactive about this versus, like, in the heat of the moment reacting. So we were able to, like, process that. But that's where we talk about the weekly marriage meeting nearly every episode because so much comes back to that of it creates the space for all these other areas of your marriage to thrive because you're having that intentional time of communication.
It's so funny because in that meeting with my pastor on Thursday, he was like, "I just feels like so much comes back to the importance of having a weekly marriage meeting." I was like, "It's true. Like that's what we were talking about."
Should we like put him on our marketing team?
No, but I'm just saying, like for us, we say it because we mean it and we seek to live it out in our own life. Of the weekly marriage meeting has been the one most transformational habit that we have cultivated in our relationship.
Yeah. And it's not because like, oh, this 30 minutes of conversation itself, like it's not just having a 30-minute conversation. It's having this structured time of reflection on these different categories. So anyway, if it sounds like we're beating a dead horse, there's a reason.
Yes.
And then number 5, so we've gone through, do I want to recap them all?
Yeah, I'll recap them all really quick and then I'll do 5.
Number 1, practice soft startup. That calm voicing the issue at hand, focusing on that me language, how I feel versus accusational you
Focus
language.
on the situation at hand.
Yeah. 2, remove always and never language. It's likely not true. It's going to turn the argument into an argument about the argument instead of an argument about the thing at hand. Number 3, develop a conflict resolution plan where ours is we stop and we pray, remind each other we're on the same team, state the biggest issue, actively listen, and then come up with tangible ways to solve the problem. Number 4, discuss regularly how conflict's going. We do that in our weekly marriage meeting. All right, number 5, apologize when you make mistakes and ask how you can serve yourself better.
Serve yourself better?
Sorry, your spouse.
How can I serve me better?
You can't love others if you don't love yourself first.
True. Amen, sister.
Gosh, the Instagram motivations of this world. But anyway, when you fall short, this comes back to what does the Bible say? When you fall short, well, this isn't what the Bible says, but these principles I feel like are just how do we live out Christ-likeness in our marriage? Well, we practice humility. We admit our wrongdoings. We seek to love the other more than ourselves.
There's just something to be said about humbling yourself and apologizing when you make mistakes and when you're in the wrong. And you need to do that because that is so much against our fleshly nature. Like we don't want to admit mistakes. We don't want to admit we're wrong. We want to fight tooth and nail to try to justify our actions, even if they were out of bounds or out of line. Like I even remember for me, it was so hard to apologize for, I was clearly in the wrong with how I had gotten frustrated and how I had handled that situation, but it's still so hard to do that. And so humbling yourself, apologizing when you make mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes. It again, just, it softens the discussion with your spouse, makes them more willing to engage. And then it also is like, oh, I know and I can trust that they're willing to apologize when they do make mistakes. Like there's just something about that and something important about, we see throughout scripture confessing your sins and coming before the Lord. And I think in your marriage of apologizing when you make mistakes.
And I think an important piece is when you're receiving an apology, receiving that humbly too. Being grateful for that apology and not keeping record of wrongs and I think, again, in our fleshly state, we can sometimes see that as, okay, they're admitting their weakness and I'm going to use that against them later, just also humbly accepting the apology and forgiving.
So there's that. And then there's the other piece that Jen said of asking how you can serve your spouse best moving forward. Because again, it just puts you in a position of like, I'm looking out for your interests. I'm not looking out for my interests. I want to know how I can serve you best moving forward. Like I even know when you had asked me that question this past Sunday meeting, that's another question that we have in our Sunday meeting. But I was just explaining how like I look forward to Saturdays so much and just I'm like so exhausted from the weeks, and Saturdays is just such a beautiful day of rest and rejuvenation. And I feel like at the beginning of the week, I'm able to work out of the Sabbath really well. And then by the time Thursday or Friday roll around, I'm like, oh my goodness, thank goodness Saturday's right around the corner. And so like when we didn't have that this past week, even though I responded poorly to that, and I shouldn't have responded that, it's not a justification, but for us, protecting that Saturday is really important. And so for me to be able to voice that and for you to know like how you can best serve me is by protecting the Sabbath, like that's really important to know, and then it's similarly like when I ask you how I can serve you best, like it's typically going to be things around cleaning the house together after the kids go to bed, or it's going to be making sure you don't fall asleep with the girls so that you can help with certain things or everything like that. And it's helpful for me to know how I can live that out the coming week.
Yeah, for sure. So 1 degree shift, a simple shift you can make today that will compound into growth over the future.
That's right.
Come up with a conflict resolution plan and then regularly revisit it, regularly discuss how conflict is going. Dare I say, have a weekly marriage meeting that you can create the space for these things too.
But that's all we got. Love you, 1 Degree fam.
Catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in for this episode of the 1 Degree Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'd be so appreciative if you take just a few seconds to leave a rating and a quick review. We love to hear your feedback, and those ratings really do help make it easier for others to find this podcast.
And if you want to continue this chat or share your takeaways, we'd love to hear from you. Head on over to our Instagram at the 1 Degree Podcast and leave a comment or send us a DM. We can't wait to hear from you. Catch you next week, 1 Degree fam.